thought I would film a little get ready with me, but also like tell you about this cute book that I just finished. Fairy Godmother. Also, I'm recovering from an obnoxious cold that I've like had for the last week. So please excuse the sniffling and weird voice. That is way too dang bright. Oh dear God. There you go. No laughing aloud. Anyway. Tea makes everything better. I recently finished the Fairy Godmother book. It is an official Disney book, but that does not mean that the lore of it is necessarily canon. Disney, especially with the parks, is really picky about what media is canon to the characters in the park. I ran into that a lot with the Star Wars stories. I'm gonna try and not tell you too much, like spoiler-wise about it. But the story I am about to tell you is not necessarily canon to Fairy Godmother. The story is basically how Fairy Godmother, Rene is her name, turned from a normal princess, a normal human, just like you and I, and became Cinderella's fairy godmother by the end of the book. What I personally love as well is it explains a lot of her little quirks, because Fairy Godmother is known to be like a little forgetful, you know, kind of like quirky and silly, you know, and an old lady. And so to me, I was curious as to like, what does all of that mean? You know, how did we get from a fairly young human to, which is what she starts out at the beginning of the book, to the fairy godmother we all know and love? And it has a lot to do with fairy magic, obviously. Now, what I love as well is the story, although slightly different from fairies, like from Fairies from Pixie Hollow, it does still connect in a way to the Pixie Hollow fairies like Tinkerbell and Silver Mist and Periwinkle, which, by the way, if you have not read the Wings of Starlight book that is inspired by the Secret of the Wings Tinkerbell movie, you should. It is such a cute little, I love it. Now, something that Disney Books does that I don't particularly like necessarily, Disney Books, I've discovered they really like to do a lot of world building, which I can't ding them on that too much, because I know a lot of people who don't do enough world building in a way. In this circumstance, I felt like we spent a little too long explaining the fairy rules a touch too much. The story kind of has three different parts. It has the part of her as a human. She is a nanny of sorts. Checks out, cares for children. An incident happens and she becomes a fairy unintentionally. It's about her learning about the fairy world, learning she has powers and what to do with those said powers. And then the other fairies also not knowing why she has powers. And then learning a lot of the fairyland she's been placed into. Now, the world that she's been placed into, I really liked. It gave off Hogwarts vibes from Harry Potter, because all of the fairies are learning how to be different types of fairies, whether they're being garden fairies, whether they're be healing fairies, seer fairies, fairy godmothers, you know, all of that fun stuff. And they kind of, like the sorting hat, kind of get told what they're supposed to do. And she desperately wants to learn more about being a fairy godmother. Now, she was interested in fairies and fairy godmothers before she became a fairy. So that's part of the reason why she's like, oh, I want to do that, because that's what I connect with. But it's just kind of about how she learns her powers and how she, you know, obviously becomes a fairy godmother. But there's so much more story behind it that I love, in the way of how does she become Ella's Cinderella's fairy godmother. And I'm not going to go into detail about how, because I want you guys to read the book because it's a really cute book. It is a YA book, so if you have someone, or you are someone who is interested in Cinderella or fairies or princesses and fairies, you're definitely going to have an interest in it. I am going to go one further and say that if you have booked a boutique reservation, or you have a child who's interested in going to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, I suggest you read to them this story in anticipation for going to the boutique, because although it doesn't have a lot to do with princesses, it does have something to do with Cinderella. And so you can get them excited about Cinderella, who became a princess. So you can tie it into that. And then you can also get them excited because they're going to get to see Fairy Godmother in the flesh. Now, if you've ever been to the Magic Kingdom boutique before, the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, they do have a magic mirror in which you can see Fairy Godmother, and it's a cute little experience in the dressing room. And I believe the Magic Kingdom is one of the very few places that has that ability in the boutiques, because all the boutiques are slightly different. I believe in Disneyland and Disney World at the moment, by the time you're seeing this, Fairy Godmother should be meeting people in the boutique. Now she's gonna be flying in, greeting people in the boutique, and then inviting people essentially to go meet her afterwards in the meet and greet. There's a special meet and greet that's going to be just outside the boutique that your apprentice will be walking you over to go and see her. So that is really, really exciting. She's been actually doing it for a couple of days now, and just getting to the hang of things, and it's been really exciting to see her, especially as a fairy godmother apprentice, because she's been very kind and encouraging. And it's funny that I finished reading the book right before she started meeting in the castle, because I didn't realize how of an impact that would make that experience for me, because she does go by and basically praise and hype up the other apprentices for the guests, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy, because especially when you're a frontline cast member and not necessarily in like entertainment, a lot of times you feel like a background character. And having Fairy Godmother fly into the castle and point you out by name, it makes you kind of the star of the show, and it's a special feeling, you know. But anyway, I highly recommend you read the Fairy Godmother book. It is written by Calonita. She's also a Twisted Tale author, which if you've never read the Twisted Tales before, they're also good as well. But anyway, thanks for getting ready with me. Can't forget makeup spray. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.